One of the top-ranked guards available in the transfer portal is not only considering Gonzaga, but he reportedly could come to Spokane and redshirt. Why this is arguably the best news of the entire offseason.
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, folks? Happy Tuesday and welcome into the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. Jam-packed show today. A top 2025 target, for Gonzaga is set to visit Spokane over Hoop Fest weekend. We're going to discuss that. We're also going to discuss Andrew Nembhard's electric NBA playoff performance, including dropping 20 in Game 7 against the New York Knicks. We're also going to talk about Chet Holmgren earning all rookie first-team honors, all that coming up today. But first, we start once again talking about Braeden Smith, the Colgate guard, a rising junior from Seattle Prep, not the Braeden Smith who plays for Purdue. I've said that a few times. I want to make sure a couple people in the comments are like, wait, why would no? Yeah, not the one who stars at Purdue. He's not in the transfer portal, nor should he be in the transfer portal. But Braeden Smith, Seattle Prep, went to Colgate in the Patriot League, has spent the past 2 years with Colgate, and has been exceptional with that team. He entered the transfer portal in this offseason. Rumors have been swirling for a couple of weeks now that Gonzaga is heavily involved in this recruitment. We heard late last week that Gonzaga is hosting Braeden Smith. As I'm recording this right now on Monday evening, he is reportedly in Spokane right now. This is the day the visit started. I don't know how many days he's going to be there. If we're going to hear any announcement, I'm hoping this doesn't become obsolete shortly. But if it does, we'll have more updates on what it means if Braeden Smith does, in fact, commit to Gonzaga. But he was planning to visit Washington. It was Washington, Cal, and Gonzaga are the three schools that have been kind of the most connected to Smith right now. There's a couple other schools in the mix, but those are kind of the three that are primarily getting talked about. And what we heard was that Smith was going to visit Washington late last week. He was going to visit Cal, I think, on Sunday, and then he was going to come to Spokane on Monday. It was kind of a weird trip. It was like, why is he going to Seattle and then down to Berkeley and then up to Spokane? Not sure who set the travel itinerary there, but that is what was reported. Then Washington went ahead and added a guard in the transfer portal. They landed Tyree and Iheanacho from North Dakota. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. And what I've heard, and I'm not able to fully confirm this, but what I heard was that Washington let Smith know, hey, we got a kid coming in from North Dakota where he's going to commit. He's going to be the last guard. And I don't know exactly whether they told Braeden Smith not to come, whether they said, hey, we're no longer offering you a spot, like what exactly the conversation was there. But the reports indicate that Smith didn't go on his visit to Washington. Sounds like UW picked their guy and said, hey, this is the direction we're going to go. And Smith decided, okay, I'm not going to go on that trip to Seattle. So that's obviously good news for Gonzaga. It sounds like the Cal visit still happened, and Cal is a program that has already made a ton of additions in the portal, but lost a huge chunk of their roster. They have room. Mark Madsen is a good coach. There's potentially a promising sales pitch there, but it also sounds like Gonzaga is potentially in the front here, the front runner to land Braeden Smith. And if you're sitting there thinking, how in the heck is this going to work? You're not alone. Gonzaga does not have room for a player to come in and play significant minutes on the roster next season. They didn't have room when they added Emmanuel Inocente from Tarleton State. He is on the roster. The expectation is not, as of right now, that Inocente is going to redshirt, but there's not a lot of playing time available to him, assuming Michael Ajayi returns to Spokane. Obviously, Ajayi could stay in the NBA draft process. If you'd like to hear more about that, check out Monday's show of Locked On Zags. We talked a lot about it in the first segment of that show. But if Ajayi doesn't commit, then yes, Inocente would step into a bigger role regardless. Braeden Smith is a point guard. He is the minutes for him available next season just are not there, regardless of what happens with Michael Ajayi, because Ryan Nembhard is still there and Nolan Hickman is still there. And Caleb Battle is not going anywhere. He is still there. He's already signed with Gonzaga. So is Michael Ajayi, by the way. So has Emmanuel Inocente. That means that those guys, they're pretty much locked in. Ajayi is the only one who's not locked in because he could stay in the draft process. Battle and Inocente, they're not going anywhere. Nembhard, Hickman, of course, those guys are not going anywhere either. So the situation becomes, would Braden Smith redshirt? And this has been floated. People have said this. People have said they have sources. I have not talked to anybody with direct knowledge of the situation who has said definitively, yes, Braden Smith would consider redshirting if he came to Gonzaga. And the way that the transfer portal works now, with the ruling that happened last December, where basically it was determined by a judge that the NCAA cannot prevent players from playing even if they're multi-time transfers, there's not really any rules that say that Braden Smith couldn't just transfer somewhere else. If Gonzaga says, we want you to be our starting point guard when Ryan Nembhard graduates, which that's what I am assuming is the conversation, and it should be. Braden Smith, stylistically, if you've watched Colgate highlights, he looks like Ryan Nembhard. He plays very similar to him. Statistically, he put up very good numbers. He averaged about 12.5 points, about 5.5 assists last year. He was the Patriot League Player of the Year. He'd only shot 31% from three last year, but he shot 36% as a true freshman. So there's some optimism that the shot could potentially improve for him going forward. But he looks like Gonzaga's future starting point guard. And I have a feeling that Mark Few and the staff, they are hammering that home. We want you to start at point guard in 2025-26. You might start alongside a five-star prospect in Isaiah Harwell. You might start alongside Davis Fogle. We'll talk about him momentarily. He probably didn't start as a freshman, but Fogle is a player that's coming to Spokane in a couple of weeks and is a 2025 prospect. Regardless, there's a real chance that Gonzaga is heavily trying to pursue Braden Smith to be their starting point guard in the 2025-26 season. Here's the thing. If Smith goes somewhere else, if he goes to Cal, and he plays a year at Cal, and then after the season, he hits the transfer portal and transfers to Gonzaga. At this point, there's not anything preventing him. He would be able to play right away, unless the NCAA somehow manages to actually put in rules and enforce them in the next calendar year, which seems pretty unlikely. There's nothing stopping Braden Smith from saying, well, I'm just going to go play somewhere else and actually play basketball, and then I'll come to Gonzaga next year. The problem with that for Gonzaga and for Braden Smith is that kills a year of eligibility. If he comes to Gonzaga and redshirts, he could then be Gonzaga's starting point guard for 2 years. And in that redshirt season, he would gain incredibly valuable developmental skills. And this is what Gonzaga is so flippin' good at. Their ability to develop players in redshirt seasons is extraordinary, astronomical, whatever superlative you want to use here. And it has been this way for decades. Kelly Olynyk is the best recent example, or not recent, the best older example. That hurts me that's an older example, but you have your Kyle Wilchers, you have your Brandon Clarks, you have your Nigel Williams-Gosses. You have so many players who have come into the program. A recent example would be Braden Huff. Look how great Braden Huff was last year as a guy who was not really a prospect. He was barely top 100 in his recruiting class, and he spends a year developing behind the scenes and is awesome. Awesome as a redshirt freshman. Gonzaga does this better than anybody in the country, bar none, anybody in the country. Braden Smith knows this. The staff is reminding him of this constantly. You come to Gonzaga, you sit out a year, you learn the offense. You go in practices, you're going up against Ryan Nembhard and Nolan Hickman and Caleb Battle, guys who are really, really good, experienced veteran college basketball players. You learn the offense. You learn how Ryan Nembhard is seeing things, what he's looking for. You learn the teammates that you're going to play with, guys like Huff and EK if he sticks around, and Venters and Stromer. You learn your teammates, you learn the offense, you learn the system, you learn from a great peer point guard. And then you have 2 years to captain the ship at a top 10 team in the country. That is an incredible sales pitch that Gonzaga is able to make. He's not getting that pitch at Cal. He's not getting that pitch at Washington or Syracuse or any other place that has shown some modicum of interest in him going forward. That is a Gonzaga-specific pitch, and there is documented proof. There are multiple guards who have redshirted at Gonzaga and gone to the NBA. It happens at this program. And I believe wholeheartedly that the rumors that he is considering this are true, and that it is in his best interest and potentially in Gonzaga, or it is definitely in Gonzaga's best interest. It is potentially in his best interest as well to develop behind the scenes and turn into that kind of player. And this is not something we thought we'd see much of. The modern era of college basketball for a lot of people has eliminated this as a possibility. They didn't think there's no way a player would voluntarily redshirt. Why would they go to a place where where they're not going to play when they could go anywhere else? And at this point, yeah, Braden Smith has a lot of options that he could pursue. But the fact that he is considering this, even if he doesn't do it, The fact that he's considering this is pretty concrete proof that he is a Zag, that he fits there's a reason Gonzaga is interested in him. He is willing to put himself on the back burner for a year because he is betting on himself, his long-term development, and he's betting on Gonzaga to get him where he wants to be. I hope he does this. It would be a tremendous gift for Gonzaga to basically have their Ryan Nembhard replacement point guard locked in, just absolutely set. Yes, of course, he could re-enter the portal after this year, but if he commits to Gonzaga to redshirt, he's probably not going anywhere. He's going to be the guy for a couple of years after that. This is a fun story to follow. There's potentially going to be an update on it very soon. Again, if he's in Spokane right now as I'm recording this, we may hear if he's going to commit and make this a reality for him, in which case we'll talk about it again and we'll talk more about what it means. But this is a really fun story and I think highlights the beauty of Gonzaga basketball, the beauty of Mark Few's program. If they can convince a player who's ranked in the top 10 among available transfers right now, if they can convince a player at that level to come to Spokane and redshirt because of what players in the past have done with that, that is a huge compliment to this program and the success that they have had under Mark Few in the last couple of decades. Well, we teased it already. 2025 target Davis Fogle. He is set to visit Gonzaga in late June. Could he be playing alongside Braeden Smith in Spokane? We're going to talk about that in just a second. But first, I want to tell you all about today's sponsor, LinkedIn Jobs. Folks, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster, and they do it for free. And folks, LinkedIn is not just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you cannot find anywhere else, even those who are not actively searching for a new job, but who might be open to the perfect role. And in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users do not visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, folks, you're not looking in the right place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses will get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Folks, LinkedIn is also constantly finding ways to make their process even easier. They just launched a feature that will help you write job descriptions, which makes that process not only easier, but quicker as well. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, folks, segment 2, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast, and we are still talking about potential future guards for the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Talked about Braeden Smith, the Colgate transfer who is reportedly visiting Gonzaga right now. Now we're going to talk about a 2025 target for the Zags, Davis Fogle. We got the report about it half an hour before I hit the record button. Very glad I waited a little bit longer today. Davis Fogle is set to visit Gonzaga June 28th through 29th. We've talked about Davis Fogle a handful of times on the podcast. He is a 6'7" guard from Anacortes, Washington. He's previously been playing at Anacortes High School, 2A school in Washington. He's currently ranked 74th in the class of 2025 at 24/7 Sports' rankings. He's been on the Zags' radar for a while, but it took them a while to actually make him an offer. We'd heard that there was interest. We actually heard that Fogle is somebody who had been interested in Gonzaga. He's come to camps when he was in middle school. Obviously, he's from the state of Washington. So if you're in the state of Washington and you want to play college basketball, Gonzaga is certainly a program that's going to stand out to you. So we'd kind of gotten this impression that he was interested in coming to Gonzaga, but we hadn't seen Gonzaga officially make any kind of offer. And then something happened. Davis Fogle started getting listed at 6'7". Previously, he'd been listed at 6'5", which is still pretty good for a player who's been primarily playing point guard in high school. But there's a big difference between 6'5" and 6'7". And it was shortly after we saw the updates on On3 and 24/7 and other sites that he had grown that Gonzaga made an offer. Hard to blame them for that. A lot of other very good programs in the mix for Davis Fogle right now. Kansas, pretty good school right there. Creighton is in the mix. Nebraska has been in on the mix for a while. They're currently considered in the lead on On3's website, although those don't update very often. LSU is in the mix as well. And Fogle is planning to play his senior year of high school basketball at Compass Prep in Arizona. It's one of the premier high school basketball factories in the country. So that'll get him some even more attention depending on when he commits. If he's still uncommitted when he starts playing there, he's certainly going to get a lot of eyeballs on him at that point. The Zags have been out watching him. They watched him on the AAU circuit last week. He's had some good performances. We know that some of the coaching staff was there watching him. This is a player that has become more of a priority for Gonzaga. And considering his previous interest in the school, it feels like they're in a good spot. They're also bringing him out for Hoop Fest. I said that it was somewhat tongue-in-cheek earlier, but like that's a priority weekend to bring in recruits. Show them what Spokane is like. I don't know if Davis Fogle has been to Hoop Fest in the past. He's a high school basketball player in the state of Washington. It's possible that he has, that he's already seen it. But it's a great weekend to bring in recruits. It's a great weekend to bring in transfers if you're still filling out your roster, which Gonzaga is not really at this point. But it's a great chance to bring guys in to see the community. For those of you who are listening who maybe don't live in Spokane, haven't been to Spokane, have never been to Hoop Fest, it is an incredible event. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on it. If you've been there, if you know, you know. If you know, you know. And if you know that Fogle will get to see the entire city of Spokane descend upon downtown and show this love for basketball. And it's a huge opportunity for them to kind of showcase what makes Gonzaga basketball special and the Spokane community special as well. So we're going to continue to keep an eye on Davis Fogle. I would not be shocked if there's a commitment by Fogle sometime over the summer after that visit. But again, Kansas, Creighton, Nebraska, LSU, all high major programs. Kansas and Creighton, of course, very successful programs lately. If they're really serious about Davis Fogle and make a strong pitch for him, that might be a little bit hard for him to turn down. But consider Gonzaga maybe not in the lead right now, but at least a very strong player to potentially land Davis Fogle. Also want to talk here about Nick Kamenia, another name we have talked about a whole bunch on the Locked On Zags podcast. He's a 2025 four-star prospect from Harvard Westlake High School in Studio City, California. Currently, he is 36th in the class of 2025, according to On3's industry rankings. That's a composite rankings of a variety of different sites. Those sites are ESPN, where he is 32nd, On3, where he is 39th, 24/7 Sports, where he is 40th, and then Rivals, where he is 50th. So he's a top 50 player in his class at all four major recruiting services. He is top 40 at three of those four. This is a talented player. He's 6'7". He's a wing. He's kind of a floor spacing, stretch four, maybe three hybrid player. And he's been on Gonzaga's radar for a long time. He took an unofficial visit to Gonzaga back in 2022 at Craziness in the Kennel before the 22-23 season. He then took an official visit to Gonzaga for the Craziness in the Kennel in 2023. He has been to the last two Craziness in the Kennel events. And it feels like it's been a long time because it has been a long time that Gonzaga has been pursuing Nick Kamenia. But again, he's a 2025 prospect, so it's not unusual that he hasn't committed yet. Gonzaga's just been in on him from the very, very beginning. They've been watching him regularly. Stephen Gentry was out watching him this weekend at his AAU events, which, by the way, he had 18 points, 10 boards, and 6 assists in his first AAU game, and then he dropped 34 in his second AAU game. This dude is good. He is a really good scorer, really talented basketball player. Sean Farnham spoke about him. He's seen him a lot from watching high school basketball in the California area, and this is a kid who would really help Gonzaga right away. Now, Kamenia spoke to On3 about the recruiting that has been happening. He spoke about Gonzaga specifically. I'm going to read the quote here again. This is from Jamie Shaw at On3, who says, "I learned a lot about the team dynamic when I went on my visit. I saw how it was really like a family up there between the coaches and the players. They bring guys back from like 2009, the 90s, and they have these guys on staff as well. The coaches' kids are at practice. You can just see a really family-oriented program. They use a lot of guys and utilize their versatility. They let all their guys 1 through 5 pass, dribble, and shoot. The coaches let the players do what they're capable of." I think that's a really astute observation by Kamenia. He's acknowledging the family side, the atmosphere for Gonzaga, but also acknowledging the basketball side of things and why he might be a logical fit there. He's a talented kid. He's an intelligent kid. A lot of reasons to believe that this fit makes a ton of sense. A lot of other schools in the mix here, USC and UCLA, have both been in the mix for a long time. Of course, a hometown kid there trying to keep him in that area. Trent Perry was teammates with Nick Kamenia at Harvard Westlake High School. Perry was initially committed to USC, is now committed to UCLA, so certainly some connections at both those programs there. Virginia is involved. Oklahoma is now involved, and Illinois is involved as well. So we're starting to see some bigger high major programs get in the mix. He also has offers from Minnesota, UNLV, Iowa, Cal, Kansas, Nebraska, Stanford, and St. John's. Currently, On3 still favors Gonzaga, but again, those kind of prediction metrics don't really update very often, so don't really know what that means, but certainly Gonzaga has been the favorite for a long time for Kamenia and could very well be the team that ultimately ends up landing him. He said he wants to commit by September, so we're hopefully only a few months away from finding out where he's going to end up as a player who's been on Gonzaga's radar for many years now. Also wanted to mention that in an article Max Mandel wrote at 24/7 Sports talking about both Nick Kamenia and Davis Fogle, he mentioned that Zach Norvell, assistant coach for Gonzaga now, is out attending the Nike EYBL, which is a kind of an AAU basketball tournament for some of the premier high school basketball prospects. There's not anybody that is Gonzaga is known to be looking at who was participating in the games that Norvell was watching, but he's getting a chance to scout. Basically, he's getting a chance to go out there and look and identify some talent and bring some names back to the rest of the coaching staff. And that's just cool. I'm happy for Snacks. I'm happy that he's getting this opportunity. I'm sad that his basketball playing career didn't go the direction that certainly he would have hoped that it would. But nice to see him out helping Gonzaga right now out on the recruiting trail. Well, Chet Holmgren, folks, he was named an all-rookie first-teamer in the NBA. We're going to talk about that. And Andrew Nembhard dropping 20 in Game 7 for the Indiana Pacers at the Madison Square Garden to take down the Knicks. More coming up on both of those things in just a second. Right after I tell you about today's sponsor, Yahoo Finance. Folks, I love stats and numbers so much, and that doesn't just apply to sports, although you all know that I love my stats in the sports game, but I also like keeping tabs on how all of my investments are going. And I used to track it all by myself, and I would use a bunch of different spreadsheets. And then I was talking to my financial advisor, and they suggested using Yahoo Finance, which is a one-stop shop to keep track of all of my finances in just one location. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you the tools and the data that you need all in one place. You can securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. And a comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's how Yahoo Finance ensures that you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. With a community of over 90 million users every month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the #1 financial destination. Again, that's yahoofinance.com. All right, folks, segment 3, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast. Moving on to talk about some Zags in the NBA. We'll start with Chet Holmgren, named an all-rookie first-teamer. He and Victor Wembanyama were the only two players who were unanimous selections to the All-NBA rookie first team. There was 99 voters. They each got 99 first-place votes to be on that team. They were joined by Brandon Miller from Alabama, who had 97 first-place votes. Jaime Jaquez from Alabama for Brandon Miller. He's also with Charlotte, the Hornets. That's where he's playing now. Jaime Jaquez with the Miami Heat, formerly with the UCLA Bruins. He got 89 first-place votes. And then Brandon Pajemski with the Golden State Warriors, 33 first-place votes, former Santa Clara Bronco, which means Gonzaga faced every single first-teamer except, of course, Victor Wembanyama. They faced Brandon Miller when he was at Alabama. They faced Jaquez at UCLA. They faced him multiple times, actually. And, of course, they faced Brandon Pajemski at Santa Clara multiple times as well. The second team, Derek Lively from Duke, Amen Thompson, Keontae George, Cason Wallace, and G.G. Jackson. The Zags faced they faced Cason Wallace. I'm not actually sure if they faced Baylor the year that Keontae George was there. Regardless, Chet Holmgren did not win Rookie of the Year. That went to Victor Wembanyama in a unanimous vote. Understandably, Chet was fantastic. He was fantastic, don't get me wrong, but Victor Wembanyama was pretty otherworldly in what he was able to do last season. Chet finishes his rookie season averaging 16.5 points, 8 boards, 2.5 assists, 2.3 blocks, shot 37% from 3, and played all 82 games. I've said those numbers on here a few times already, but I like to reiterate them, especially the part about him playing all 82 games, because the rumors or the conversation, the discourse that he was fragile, certainly picked up to a fever pitch when he missed his entire actual rookie season with a foot injury, a freak injury that could have happened to anybody. For him to return from that injury and put all the doubters aside by putting together a phenomenal rookie season and playing all 82 games is absolutely tremendous. Chet also brought it in the playoffs. Now, Oklahoma City did get eliminated by the Dallas Mavericks. They are no longer in the playoffs, but Chet in the final game of the season, he had 21 points on 9 of 15 shooting against the Mavericks. He finished that series against Dallas averaging 15.8 points, 6.2 boards, 2.3 blocks, and about two assists. So pretty close to his regular season numbers in that series against Dallas. Again, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving were too much for Oklahoma City, and Dallas does advance there. And in fact, there is now only one former Zag left in the NBA playoffs because the Denver Nuggets were also eliminated. Julian Strawther wasn't playing much for Denver in that series, but the Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Denver Nuggets, no longer in the picture. The only Zag left is Andrew Nembhard. And it is because in Game 7, the Indiana Pacers, the 6th seed, playing the 3-seeded New York Knicks, or the 2-seeded New York Knicks, I believe, in Madison Square Garden, Game 7, the Indiana Pacers went in and absolutely blew the doors off of the Knicks. They had a 67% field goal percentage for the game. It is the highest field goal percentage in an NBA playoff game ever. And they did it on the road at the Garden against the Knicks. It was a tremendous performance from Indiana all across the board. All of their starters were between 17 and 26 points, a balanced, dynamic attack from the Pacers. And Andrew Nembhard, as he always is, was the straw that stirs the drink. He had 20 points in this game, his first 20-point game in the playoffs. What a time for that to happen. He finished with 6 assists, 5 rebounds, and a steal as well. He was 8 of 10. Again, Indiana shot 67%, so you're not surprised that Nembhard was efficient, but 8 of 10 from the field in that game, including 1 of 2 from distance. Just a phenomenal performance from Nembhard. He has really blossomed in a way that, I mean, it's almost the best case scenario for Andrew Nembhard as an NBA player. He has exceeded that. He's exceeded my highest expectations. For those of you on YouTube, by the way, I tossed on my Andrew Nembhard Pacers jersey. You got to rep that for right now, but what a tremendous career that he has had. I mean, just from the get-go, to be an all-rookie second teamer as a rookie, as a second-round pick is tremendous. And then this year he takes a bit of a step back because Indiana brings in guards to kind of play over him a little bit, but he does really well in a reserve role. And then the playoffs roll around and he ends up back in the starting lineup and he's killing it. 6 games against Milwaukee. He played 35 minutes a game against the Bucks, averaged 14 points, a little under 5 assists, 3.3 boards, shot just under 60% from the field and 45% from 3. And then in 7 games against the Knicks, played about 30 minutes a night, averaged 12.3 points, 5 assists, 3 boards, shot 54.7% from the field, and a blistering hot 52.6% from 3. 52% from 3 in a 7-game series against the New York Knicks. Andrew Nembhard is that dude. He has proven it time and time and time and time again. And now he gets a chance to go up against the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, the 6th seed. Indiana Pacers against the number 1 seed in the East, the Boston Celtics. Andrew Nembhard could potentially help lead this team to an NBA Finals appearance. It is must-see appointment television right now. Tuesday, tonight, for those of you listening on Tuesdays, the first game of that series, check it out. Got to watch this Andrew Nembhard and the success that he's having in the NBA. It is. I'm always proud of the Zags at the next level, but it has been unbelievable to see the progression of his career from his time at Gonzaga to now. And it's one of the most fun I've ever had watching a Zag in anything other than a Gonzaga uniform. So definitely check it out. If you haven't been watching, it's well worth tuning in at this point. It's going to wrap it up for us today here on the Locked On Zags podcast. We'll continue to keep you up to date on Braeden Smith as that recruiting visit is over. We'll see if there's a commitment coming down the line. Keep you up to date on recruiting. Keep you up to date on the NBA finals and semifinals as they continue to come together. All that coming up on future episodes here on the Locked On Zags podcast. Thanks again to those of you who have made this show your first listen or your first watch of the day. And until tomorrow, as always, go Zags.